Is it cut out or just me?
Yeah, no, Simon cut out for a second. Simon, you've
Okay.
cut out on us.
But yeah,
Yeah,
Simon, if you can fix your mic. But just while waiting for Michael, Simon to fix his mic, Jackson, I had another question for you, and then when Simon's back, we'll give him back the mic. Just a question for you, Jackson. We've talked about Kim's experience. Obviously, we're talking about Pavel now. We've had Andrew come share his experience, Alex Jones. Um, what Caitlin was here as well. What have you gone through as you've been, pretty outspoken? Your following blew up in the past few months, and you say a lot of things that would piss off a lot of people, and you take a lot of controversial positions. What impact has that had on you, other than your social media platforms being deplatformed on a few social media platforms?
Thank God, not much yet. I mean, just social media platforms gone. I've been banned from payment processors, and then been
What reason
detained.
did they? What reason did they give for payment processors?
Well, the Gray Zone did an interesting article and showed that MI6 linked affiliates were targeting people. It wasn't just me; it was like journalists covering the Russia-Ukraine conflict in a light that uh, was not adjacent with the mainstream, and it was shown. I forget the guy's name, but some British guy. He's a former member of Parliament. He's the one that basically made it happen. PayPal and Venmo. And then I've been detained at the airport a few times. But honestly, this whole thing with the FBI raiding the homes of everyone, I mean, that stuff's crazy. So the fact that they're going after people in their homes and they're going to be doing more in the future is insane. But thank God, not too much.
Are you still living in where are you living now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Miami.
Okay, still in the States. Have you considered leaving?
Well, I've considered of course, I travel a lot, and I've considered getting a place somewhere else. But I'll always keep my roots here. And if they ever try to do anything to me, I mean, I'm not going to be afraid to come back and fight it. If I'm away, or if I'm here, of course I'll fight it. But the fact is, as long as okay, if you're like Scott Ritter, he worked for RT. He was getting paid like 300, 150 bucks somewhere in there per article to work for RT. And now they're doing all this stuff. They raided his house. They're gonna probably try to file criminal charges against him. In my eyes, that's not illegal. You have plenty of people that work for foreign media outlets each and every day who do nothing wrong, who are not arrested, who get a lot more money than Scott Ritter, and also face a lot more editorial, advice from their employers than Scott Ritter did at RT. In addition to that, you have people like the former spokeswoman of Ron DeSantis, who I'm blanking on her name. It was that she was on a few of your spaces, but she was the spokeswoman of Ron DeSantis, and I think she still is. She worked for Mikhail Saakashvili in Georgia, the former president of Georgia, and because he was an ally of the United States, when it was found that she illegally violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act, working for him and not reporting that she was a foreign agent, they allowed her to belatedly register as a foreign agent. But for Scott Ritter, because he's going against the deep state, both with their narratives on Russia and Israel, he's not granted the opportunity to belatedly register as a foreign agent. No, they come in and they invade his home and they take his private belongings and stuff. So I think we all have to look at what people like Pavel are doing, look at what people like Elon are doing, like Kim are doing, and understand that we do have to fight this. We can't just like back out of the fight. This is a critical moment. And if we back out of the fight, it's going to have long-standing ramifications in the future. We got to do what Julian Assange did and not back down.
You got to look
Yeah,
at
I'm.
who they're
Go ahead, Ian.
arresting, right? Like who they're arresting in the UK and Germany and different parts of Europe and all these different countries in Canada. And for the most part, I know like this Israel versus Palestine thing is like a super heated topic. Everybody's got an opinion on it, but no one's really being censored on that, and at least not on Instagram or TikTok or even X, right? So I don't think that's the main issue. I think the main issue with these countries are their own policies. That's what they're arresting people for, right? The loudest people, the people who criticize mass immigration in the UK, for example, they're being arrested for being quote unquote far right, for tweeting mean things about, about mosques or something, right? Or even just talking about mass immigration in general and saying that it's something that needs to be stopped. They disparage the labor establishment, right? The labor regime of Keir Starmer. They're disparaging it, and that's what they're getting arrested for. In Germany, it's the same thing. There was a magazine that was shut down recently, and the reason for that was not because they're talking about Israel or Palestine or anything like that. I don't think they even have any opinions on that. It was mostly about mass immigration, and it was about how they're being treated unfairly as conservatives, as right wingers, whatever you want to call them, right? That's what they're arresting people for, right? And it's basically anything that threatens the establishment. In Canada, we saw the debanking of hundreds of truck drivers, and even the people who supported them, people sent them money on GoFundMe, got hit with Chrysler Freeland's debanking scheme, where she froze all their accounts. A lot of them lost their licenses to operate their trucks. And right now they're all pretty screwed, and they went after some of the ringleaders, quote unquote, the ringleaders of that truck convoy, the Freedom Convoy, for years and years and years. It's only until now that they've managed to win their cases because the courts threw it out. Eventually, they just came to their senses. But that's what they're going after people for. It's basically anyone who threatens the regime, whether it is through, against lockdowns like we saw in Canada and in Australia, or with, in New Zealand. I think it was particularly bad, where they were, arresting basically anybody who just violated lockdowns, and that's something they need to answer for. And that's right now in Europe, what's the biggest concern? It's certainly not Israel and Palestine, right? It's certainly mass immigration. We just saw a mass stabbing today that just happened today in Solingen at a festival of diversity of all fucking places. ISIS took credit for it, and of course they did. No idea they actually did that, but it was an immigrant, and he applied for refugee status in 2022. He's a new immigrant, and he went on a stabbing spree. Killed like 3 people, 8 others are seriously injured, and they don't want people to talk about that, right? They want to say, "Oh, our plans are working out perfectly." You have the Interior Minister Nancy Faeser going on television and saying that we can't let this incident divide us. We will not let the far right divide us because our policies are fucking fantastic. This is a one-off. That's who they're arresting. In the UK,
Yeah,
same thing, like I said.
let me read out a tweet here. Sorry, a segment here of Pavel's interview with Tucker Carlson. That's Pavel, the CEO and founder of Telegram. We get too much attention from the FBI and other security agencies whenever we come to the US. The last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer who works for Telegram. There was an attempt by cybersecurity officers or agents to secretly hire my engineer behind my back. They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated into Telegram's app, and they tried to persuade him to use certain open source tools that would serve as backdoors. I personally experienced similar pressure in the US whenever I would go there. I would have 2 FBI agents greet me at the airport asking questions. My understanding is that they want to establish a relationship to control Telegram better. That was not long ago, Pavel, with Tucker Carlson and the Tucker Carlson show. So kind of
Yeah,
shows the
In
idea.
April.
I
It
have
goes back to the point,
just
Kim, is
received
like,
some
go ahead, Kim.
update.
Yes,
I've
go ahead.
just received some updates from someone who's close to Pavel. So Pavel thinks that the U.S. government is behind it. He did mention also in the Tucker interview that he received letters from the Democrats demanding data from Telegram about the January 6th Capitol riots, and he disobeyed those requests. And then he also received threats from the Republicans to not reveal any data. So the teams were basically fighting Republicans and Democrats over the Telegram data. So that could be an explanation why the US government under Biden is interested to rein in Telegram. But there's an even more concerning story, and that is that the Apple Store threatened to shut down Telegram if they don't remove content where Telegram has been used to educate their users in Ukraine about what's really going on in the war. And Pavel had to block SIM cards from Ukrainian providers to access certain channels and certain content on Telegram. And I think when you think about that, the phase of the war where we are in, where there's people openly now criticizing Zelensky's war and how many people have died and how the country is in this incredibly bad position and Russia is dominating them on the battlefield, this could also explain the timing of this attack against Pavel, because they think, the US thinks, he's not doing enough to shut up about the US proxy war in Ukraine and how it's all looking so bad for the US. And I think Biden would have some urgency about that because, he is the initiator of what happened in Ukraine. This is his proxy war. And they may fear that Kamala Harris doesn't have a chance to win if Russia succeeds before the November election. So that could give this whole story a new twist of urgency, why they're trying to go after Pavel and alter things on Telegram.
Not sure if you've heard Kim, his interview with Tucker, but that segment is very intriguing to me. Are you aware of other times, whether it's on the Tucker show and other shows, he shared experiences about being threatened or being targeted by different governments? You, Kim, or anyone else who's been listening to his interviews?
Well, I mean, it's an open secret, right? There was a lot of discussion after he's done his interview with Tucker. A lot of people were actually very happy with him for the positions that he took and how he presented himself. And I follow a group of people that talk quite openly about it. And this new list of items that are of interest to the U.S. government, it all makes sense. I don't think that the French are doing this without U.S. instruction. I think this is a U.S. case, and we may yet see another extradition case against Pavel.
And just kind of share an experience about how the U.S. authorities, they've got a lot of reach. So there's someone that's happened to me about a few weeks ago now. I won't mention who it is. Less than almost a month ago, and they had a what's the institution? What's the organization that enforces arrest warrants globally? Interpol. So he had an issue with Interpol for financial crime, and he won a legal case. That means he was in the clear, so he was fine, and he decided to travel, and then he was arrested in that country. And what they think the strategy was that to trick him to think he won the legal case. Again, I haven't gone deep into this. First I hear about this. It was just a month ago. To trick him so he thinks he won the legal case, so he feels complacent to travel, and then arrest him in that country. So I'm not sure, Pavel had that level of complacency, considering the crackdown we're seeing on free speech in the EU, to be traveling to France. Your thoughts on this, Simon, and then we'll go to Brian afterwards. And then Simon, I want to kind of link this same question to a separate one on Telegram before going to Brian.
Sorry, Mario. What was the question again?
I'll ask you separate. No, that was more of a thought, but the question I had for you, and I'm glad you're back up, is what happens to Telegram now? I know you commented on it earlier. What happens to Telegram? What happened to Telegram?
It's independent. A lot of people. It should be fine.
It's completely so. Telegram, not Ton. Telegram as a platform is completely independent from Pavel.
Yes. Yeah. It's still gonna operate, yeah. It doesn't matter whether they arrest.
No, but I mean, he does. Yeah, but as a CEO, he has the ability to make decisions, and if he does accept to make a deal, or whether Telegram executives accept to make a deal,
well, he has to go through the board of directors. Like he can't just unilaterally make those decisions.
Yeah, but I think if that depends on him being in jail for 20 years.
If Pavel decides it's over, it's over. Like he has that power. He's the largest shareholder. He is the decision maker, and I think all the people that he has on his team, they are listening to him and would execute whatever his request is.
Doesn't he hold? Yeah, Kim. Doesn't he hold 100% of the company, as far as I know?
Yeah. So I gotta go, guys. I had a really good time. Thanks for listening to me. It's always great to share what I know with everybody. I'm sure they're going to come for me one way or another. And
hey, Kim, why don't you answer my question first? Do you want to stick around?
No, I gotta go, man. I have a baby boy.
Sure.
So
That's been nice. That's been guys. That's been nice.
so
Chatting.
all I'm
Okay, go
saying,
ahead.
when they're coming for me, which they will, just make some noise for me.
I
Thank you.
just find it funny that you leave as soon as I'm
Will
about
do,
to ask
Kim.
a question.
He was already leaving before you
Right,
asked the question, so I don't know what you mean by that.
But
but guys, so Brian, did you have a
Yeah. I mean,
comments on the? So actually, God,
for a while. So I was going to ask, and Ian, maybe you can answer this too, since Kim ran off. Uh, if Elon Musk was to allow content that Pavel allowed, or he's
He
accused
doesn't.
of
He
allowing.
doesn't.
No, no,
That's
no,
kind
no,
of
no.
a
Let me
that's kind
finish
of a
the
moot
question.
point,
Let me
isn't it?
finish
Because
my
he
can
Ian.
actually let me ask you. Sorry, Brian. I've got. Let me. Sorry, I'm going to just jump in on that one. Not to interrupt you, Brian. It's actually I know what the question is.
I
I've got
know too.
a question to you, Brian, linked to this. So with Twitter, it's a social media platform, so you post it publicly. In Telegram, it's a messaging platform, so you've got private messages. So the company itself shouldn't have access to those. Now, obviously, there's a lot of advantages to this because as soon as you give a centralized company, access to your communication, that goes down the censorship path and it gets eventually abused, even though the intention initially is positive. And I want to get your take if you disagree, because it's a very tricky position to be in. So let's say it's child pornography. Obviously, nobody wants child pornography to be shared. But as soon as a company has the ability to see your messages, to that somehow, and then to delete anything related to child pornography, what's next? So privacy has positives that we all agree on, but it has negatives that come with it. And the problem is when you compromise on the negatives that we all agree shouldn't be there, you start compromising on the positives as well. That's the
Yeah,
predicament
it's
that
like
I see,
banning the
Brian. Would
whole
love to get
internet
your
because
thoughts on
people
it.
use it for illegal reasons, right? I mean, and here's the
So
thing:
I
if you
thought this
read,
was my
wait, hold
question.
on, Brian,
I'll just
Brian, hold
leave
on.
since everyone wants to hear
I'll just
big
answer
ass.
your question.
Let me get
I know
so
your
uh,
question. I understand your question.
okay. Oh yeah, then we'll go to you,
Yeah,
Brian,
I
afterwards.
totally
Yeah, go ahead,
understand
Ian.
your question. So don't poo-poo me. So on Telegram, when you sign up, you agreed not to post anything that's illegal, right? Whether that's violence or child pornography or just any kind of illegal pornography or anything that's illegal in any country, they can literally take it down, and all you have to do is get a court order to take it down, right? And if you report it, your moderators are going to act and they're going to delete this stuff. They act on spam, for example. Anything that's illegal will be taken down. Now, I don't understand France's position here because they're claiming that he was not letting them access, child pornography or something. The reality is that that's just a pretext, right? They're claiming, oh, well, it's potentially illegal, but the reality is that they want access to your encrypted information. It doesn't matter if there's any CP on it or whatever, because there's no way of knowing. It's encrypted. How the fuck would you even know, right? They just want access to encrypted messages. That's it, and they're using this as a pretext to arrest this guy. That's all they're asking for. It's the same thing with
But
any platform that's encrypted. They're going to do the same thing to Signal. They're going to
Ian,
do the same thing to WhatsApp, if assuming WhatsApp even actually had encryptions. This is what they're doing, and they're saying, "Oh, well, you're encrypted, and it's potentially something illegal there, so we want access to it." Because the biggest thing about governments, right, is that they demand access. It's about surveillance. Surveillance equals control, and if they don't have access to anything that's encrypted, which they don't, they're defeated essentially, right? They can't control it. They can't control that information. They can't control what's being said. They have no idea what's being said. They can only assume what's being said. So they're just going after him with this trumped up charge of, oh well, but he's concealing child pornography, because it could literally be anything. For all we know, they're trying to stop people from fomenting dissent against the government, which is literally what they usually go after people for. They don't even care about terrorism anymore because they have all the hotlines that inform them of terrorists. No, what they want is to stop dissidents from having, protected speech, essentially.
so so
What would love to take, Brian? Go ahead.
I run a Telegram group, and I have 1,500 people in that group. I start posting images of child pornography.
You can be reported. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So,
Yeah, so I think
but
go
what I'm
ahead,
saying
Brian.
is, if that material is not removed after Telegram is notified of that material.
that's not what the case is, though. That's not what they're charging him with.
I think the case is about private
Correct.
messages. I
It's
think
about
it's the
encryption.
encryption of private
Yeah,
It's
messages.
literally about encryption. It's not
That's where it
about
gets.
him not removing stuff, because he is 100% removing the stuff. I mean, obviously not personally, but
but they're
he has a
saying he
team that
wasn't
does that.
cooperating. That
Yeah,
they're
he's
saying he
not
wasn't
cooperating
cooperating.
and giving them access to encrypted messages. That's literally all it is.
Yeah, so I think
But
so. So the question will be.
if
Go ahead.
the access to the encrypted messages, if they know Just because it's encrypted doesn't mean they don't know that child pornography was sent to somebody, correct?
Well, the problem with giving people access to the encryption is that it breaks encryption for everybody. That's the reason why Apple refuses to work with the FBI to unencrypt their messaging system. It's the reason why you need a court order to gain access to somebody's
Right,
phone.
but this isn't the United
That's the
States,
problem.
though.
Is that
This is France.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't
I,
matter.
I
The
mean, it
reality is
matters
that
because it's the
encryption
law in a different country,
works.
right?
Encryption works, and it stifles regimes. It doesn't matter what the fucking law is, because the law in
It
Nigeria
matters
is
to
going to
me
be
if it's
like, we
child
have access
pornography.
to everything
I
that you
think
own.
that, Ian, I think that if it's another country and this is legal and they're allowed to actually, by their laws, try and stop child
Are you
pornography, I'm all for
literally?
that.
Are
Are
you
you not
seriously
for that?
defending a terrible law?
no? So let me hold on. Let's just say. So Brian, do you think there should be a messaging app that is fully encrypted? Encrypted, that means from everybody, including the company itself. And would you actually hold on? You've used a platform called BitClout. BitClout has full encryption, as far as I'm aware, on DMs, on private DMs, and no one could access them except you and the person on the other side. Even the company cannot access them. So that means using that platform and supporting that platform, which is decentralized platform. There's other decentralized communication platforms. Using any of those platforms means you're supporting the ability to message privately without anyone accessing it. So then, shouldn't you support that same cause when it comes to Pavel?
I'm for encryption. What I'm saying is, if I send you a, a image that is illegal, and you report it to the government or the FBI or whoever, they should be able to have access to have that removed. They should be able to
Well,
tell.
if one person has access
But
to it,
then, yeah,
then
yeah, with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. Hold on, yeah, 2 seconds. Show me. So yeah, I agree with you, and theoretically it makes
which of
sense.
course
But
they
then,
do, because
so
all
if you're
it's an
supporting, if you're
end-to-end
sup,
thing, right? So if someone was sent
yeah,
child pornography from another account in an encryption form, they can literally just look at the receiver and go after the person who sent it. They don't need Pavel to step in and give them access to anything, because that's just not how it
yeah.
works.
So Brian, yeah. So when you said the government should have access to these private messages because there's child pornography that was shared. Um, Going back to the example I gave, a decentralized platform, that platform, the government won't have access to it, correct? If it's encrypted in a decentralized fashion, which you and me support, we support decentralization, the government wouldn't have
So
access.
so so
So why would you support it?
do we know exactly what the details were of these instances that he wasn't cooperating? Because
But let's
it really
yeah, sorry.
depends,
I was
right?
gonna
Like,
say let's before we'll dig into the details because I do have some of the details, obviously not the entire case. But just going back to the example that you gave, so you gave the example of private messages being shared and the government should have access. And then Ian was arguing that no, once you break it for one person, you break it for everybody. Encryption is encryption. Doesn't matter what's being shared. You got to give that privacy to people, the privilege of sending messages privately. And if it's abused, you got to find other ways to deal with it. So, but you were making the argument that no, there should be exceptions to encryption. But then, if you support a decentralized platform that allows encryption, then you're supporting unconditional encryption because it's decentralized. No one can decrypt it. Do you get what? Do
no,
you
no,
get the predicament?
so
Do you get the
what
other
I
perspective?
support is cooperating with the government. If the government, if you have information, and maybe this wasn't the case here, we don't know yet. But if you have information that can help the government figure out or stop child pornography from being spread, I think you should be cooperating with them.
But that's what a
If you
But
warrant
don't
then it's
have
no
that
a
longer. But
warrant
it's
information,
no
then of course
longer.
you
system
But
can't, and
it's
says.
there's nothing you can do
There's
about it. If
go.
this is case is about them allowing for encryption only, then I think I think he should be innocent. I don't think he did anything wrong. If he had information that could have led to the capture or the removal of
Oh, Brian.
child pornography,
Oh,
that's a whole other
Brian.
story.
Brian, like you surely
Hold
you
on.
can't be
Let's go
this
to.
naive, right? I mean, remember Ronald Reagan's famous saying, the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." They don't care about children. They don't give a shit about pedophilia. They're
So
using
you don't
this as
think
a way to
anybody in the
break
government
into
cares about
encryption.
child porn? You
I
think
didn't
that
say
nobody in the
anybody,
government
I'm
cares about
saying the
that?
government in
I don't
general.
think. Yeah, I
The
think. Yeah,
government wants
I
full
would.
surveillance, and encryption stands in the way of that. If they could, if the governments could, they would make all encryption illegal. The only reason they're not doing that is because they need encryption too, right? So they want to be in charge with the skeleton key and have access to literally everything
But
on the planet, which is why they attempt backdoors. Because now, keep in mind,
so
they cannot break into Apple's phones. So what they do is they get people, stupid people, to download an app that lets them snoop on it, right? Because they can't get Apple to give them access to iMessages. So that's how they spy on people, by the way. They let people install an app that they don't know is on their phone, and that's how they have access to a lot of stuff. They're not hacking your phone, so to speak. They're not working with Apple. They're not working with Google to get access to the stuff. They basically just use a backdoor because it's the only way to do it, because they understand that these companies will not give them access, and with good reason. Because if one government figures out a way to open up every single one of your phones and read all your messages, that method, right? That basic decryption method, sorry,
Ian,
is
I
going to be
don't
given to
disagree with
everybody. No one is
Ian,
going
I
to be
don't
safe.
disagree
Everybody will
with
be
you. What,
transparent, and
but
all your secrets, all your passwords, all
Go ahead, Brian.
what
your
I'm saying
deepest,
is,
darkest things are going to be
Ian,
exposed to
Let,
everybody.
Ian, what I'm saying is
go
we
ahead,
don't
Brian.
have the information to really delineate between the two, right? Like we don't know if he just wasn't he was allowing for encryption and the government didn't want him to encrypt
You literally
messages.
Okay,
think
so
they're
now,
going to
Brian.
go
So I
after the
have a question.
CEO
Let me
of a
ask. Hold
company
on.
over
Two
like one
seconds.
case?
Just give me. Yeah, just 2 seconds. I agree with that statement as well. But just quickly, Brian. So if the government, and I want to go to Simon afterwards because I know he's commenting on the legal aspects of it. But Brian, if the government came to Pavel and said, "Hey, we need to see what the communication was between these two people, private DMs, because we have suspicion that we have information that they've been sharing child pornography." Your position is that Pavel or Telegram should give them access. Is that your position, Brian?
My position would be if he had an opportunity to stop the propagation of child pornography and he didn't take that opportunity, I think he should have.
Sure, but
If
you got to be that's too broad, too vague.
so,
The specific example that
yes,
I gave you.
so if the government came to him and said, "Hey, we want to read these encrypted messages," and he refused, is that what you're saying? I would.
Yes, if they ask him to see those encrypted messages because of a very just cause to avoid to prevent child pornography, they want to see encrypted private messages. That means
I have a
If
Telegram
better
needs
if
to have a
that's
I have a
all
backdoor
it
to
better
allow
was,
them to
question
see
for
this.
I would be
this.
Hold
on
on, Ian.
Pavel's side.
Okay,
Let
let
me
him
answer this
answer
one.
and then
Hey,
I follow up.
You'll take. Hold on, sorry, Brian. You'll take. Sorry,
yeah,
2 seconds, Ian. You'll take Pavel's
yeah.
side. You said, Brian. Just to
If
understand on
that's
that particular
if that's
case.
all it was, is I would take Pavel's side. If it was something above and
Okay.
beyond that, which I think it's very possible that was the case. I don't know. We don't have all the information. The government's saying that he wasn't cooperating. Is it he wasn't cooperating with just allowing for the messages to be de-encrypted? Uh, or was it something else? Like he knew that this material was out there, or there were messages out there and people out there, specific accounts, and he wasn't taking action. That would be different.
So here's the thing, right?
Let me before you go, Ian.
I have just a brief,
Just let me
very super quick,
a
10
quick one.
seconds,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Go
10
ahead.
seconds,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. Okay.
If they're really concerned about a person sharing child pornography or something illegal, why not just go after that person? Why go after Pavel and force him to de-encrypt everything? See, like
Because
that's the
there's only
question we
two
need to be
people
asking.
that can remove it. Only that person that
It's
sent
not
it,
about
and then
removing
the
it. It's about
platform.
arresting people, right? So if you
Well,
want to
it
go
could
after a
be
child
about
pornographer, you
removing
go
it
after a child
as well.
pornographer. Like, let's say a child pornographer takes a fucking cab to some place, right? Do you arrest the cab driver for providing him a service, or do you arrest him when he arrives at the location, right?
Oh,
That's
well,
the question.
I
If
could
they're
use the.
basically they're like, hey, we're
I
gonna go
think
after
we
everybody who
then.
drives a car because it could potentially offer this guy a service, right? It's like
If
it's
you rented out
ridiculous.
office
So let
space,
me go.
Can't
and
go after
Yeah.
people like
somebody
Pavel.
rented from you.
Tuesday, Brian, if it's Brian, Ian, 2 seconds, guys. Sorry, Simon, I want you to jump in there. I think I liked Ian's response. Sorry, Brian's response. That he's if it comes to decrypting private messages, no matter the reason, Pavel, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Brian, but you stand in Pavel's position that he should
I
not
mean, that would be no
decrypt,
different
he
than
should not have a
Apple, right? That
backdoor.
would be no different than what Apple does.
Go ahead, Simon. That's as far
Okay.
as what we're
Yeah.
aware of. But go ahead, Simon.
Look, as you said, it's all about the slippery slope here, right? So there's several attack vectors that are happening right now. The case with Tornado Cash and Samurai Wallet is if you fully encrypt someone and you give people applications where they can do things on their own, should you be held responsible? And that's a really big problem because the way that people have protected themselves in the past is by not being able to access the data so that they don't have to make these really difficult decisions that lead to you ending up having to give a backdoor to the government. And then you become like Facebook, and then you end up in a situation where you're being used for other political agendas, and it just goes, downhill from there. So there's several attack vectors that are happening. This one, I believe, or at least in the case of, for example, the arrest of the Tates after they've been arrested, unarrested, arrested, unarrested, and then the judge says there's not enough to go here, is about scaring people that if you go against the deep state and you create technology that supports privacy, because of that, we want to discourage it, because when you do it, you end up getting arrested to prevent you creating that technology in the first place, or you end up having being accused with sex crimes and human trafficking and all sorts of disgusting things that someone in your app may have been doing with either that money or those messages or those photos. At the same time, if you're looking at the Elon Musk side, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I don't think our messages are encrypted and they're just stored on the Twitter server. So that's a very different case. He will have to cooperate under court order, due process, and getting warrants in order to get access to that data. So that is a court process. It should be. And then the final one is the attack vector that's happening in the UK right now, which is when you put information out there, they're saying that that could lead to inciting violence or protests that then leads to riots, and therefore you can be arrested for those messages. And these are all attack vectors that are all happening at the moment, and they're all designed because it seems like they've given up on trying to control the information. So now they just want to make you so sick
So
that you don't
guys, we
do
do
it.
have so I just got a breaking here. Um, okay, there's something pretty major happening here. Um, so we might be covering this shortly if it continues to escalate. Um, so Tel Aviv airport has been closed. There's also been 40 major strikes on Hezbollah by Israel, and Netanyahu is set to convene security cabinet amid preemptive strikes on Hezbollah. So there's been significant strikes against Hezbollah that just happened right now, and the Tel Aviv airport has just been closed completely, and flights have been redirected. So there's been 40 major strikes on Hezbollah that just took place. We'll be watching this very closely, and if this continues to escalate, we will be covering this imminently. So hopefully
Any
this seems to go
response on
through.
Iran?
Nothing from Iran yet, but people are worried that this could be just the beginning of the war between Hezbollah and Israel. I still doubt that would happen, but I could be wrong, and I hope
I
I'm not
honestly
wrong.
think it will happen, yeah. I don't think Iran's going
Yeah,
to step in as much as, Hezbollah wants them to. I think this is endgame for Hezbollah.
yeah. But let's continue the discussion, and again, we'll be changing in self-defense to act to remove these threats. The IDF striking terror targets in Lebanon, from which Hezbollah was planning to launch their attacks on Israeli civilians. So it seems that Hezbollah's response I'm assuming this is Hezbollah's response to the assassination or the killing of their leader in Beirut from a long time ago, weeks and weeks ago now, and everyone's been waiting for that retaliation. These attacks by Israel could be a preemptive strike against that. But let's go back to the discussion here. If this escalates, I'll continue. Chief, it's been a long time we haven't had you. Actually, it hasn't. We have you all the time recently. Would love to get your initial thoughts on Pavel being arrested, what that means for free speech. I know you've been very vocal against free speech, and do you think Pavel will reach some sort of deal, some sort of agreement? Because we had Kim earlier, we had Andrew who spoke to Pavel not long ago. They both said Pavel is a very smart person, but very principled person. So they don't, at least Kim doesn't think that he'll be coming to some sort of deal. He'll be fighting this in the courts.
Yeah, so a couple things are brought up in this. The government has always tried to have as much access and oversight on our information for a very long time. Even it goes beyond just backdoors. They can use 0 days and a variety of other backdoors to get information on people, which is what they've done in certain areas with Apple with 0 days. With this case, the allegation really is that there's not enough moderation, which requires Telegram to essentially have control, or I guess be monitoring things in direct messages, which is going to be something that would be a violation of of privacy most of the time. If there is a crime going on and there should be a way to report a crime directly to the app itself, they can go and handle it from there. However, if you do give a key to a government, which is a very slippery slope, with whether it be the I guess the Patriot Act and the NSA's oversight of our data, it never works out. A government, as Ian Curley said, it doesn't really care as much about an individual, but more so how much control they have over the population. And if you do give the key to Telegram to a government like, our government pretty much, they'll say, oh, we're going to go and stop this from happening. They may do that, but the cost of essentially monitoring and spying on every single user on that platform. And it's a slippery slope that will never end well. Every time we give the government more and more authority and power in our privacy, we keep ceding ground in that matter. There should be a way, and in terms of the actual case itself, all that I've seen from from a couple of the financial I guess news sources about it is just there is lack of moderation, and that there was some criminal activity going on the platform. And to be fair, if you have millions of users, you have billions of messages, billions of messages, content, and things like that on every single platform, X included. So to, I guess, say this the right way, if with X, they have their own way of handling crimes. They have their own way of resolving those matters. Same with Facebook, Meta, Instagram, YouTube. Everything has a way of doing it. I would expect that with Telegram, there should be a way again to directly report crimes and it be handled that way. But to give the government power to say, here's a back door, which is what has at least been prompted by, or at least what the founder of Telegram said to Tucker Carlson, that there is a approach from one of their engineers to kind of learn more about the back doors and systems they use internally at Telegram. To give a back door to go that far would mean the cost of our privacy, and how far that goes, they could find anything at any time. We have no idea. So that's a very slippery slope. So I'm concerned about that.
I
It's
agree.
thought
Like
crime, right?
I think that
The whole thing is thought crime. If you give governments access to all of your private information, and they'll claim that they need it to stop real crime, to stop pedophilia, to stop illegal activities, they will inevitably use it to spy on you, to surveil you, and monitor what you're saying, and you will no longer have any free speech. It doesn't matter if they're going to arrest you for, saying nasty things about Keir Starmer in the UK. The fact is, you're going to know that they're listening to you, so you're not going to say it, you're not going to think it, you'll be too afraid. It has a chilling effect on free speech. You can't give governments this kind of access. It's fucking scary. The fact is here right now that the NSA has a lot of access to all this stuff. The guys at Palantir have said so. They're like, yeah, the NSA has a lot of access to all this stuff. We know this from the Edward Snowden files. But the thing is, they're fucking incompetent, and we should be grateful that they're just fucking incompetent, because otherwise we'd see a lot of people getting arrested for no damn good reason, right? But in the UK, on the other hand, they want that kind of access. In France, they want that kind of access, and they're willing to put their really competent people in charge of this stuff so they can monitor what you're saying and stop you from even thinking what you're thinking. And you can't let this happen. It's complete dystopian. It's just big brothers watching you at all times, and there's this old joke about how in Soviet Russia, TV watches you. Yeah, well, we're living in basically modern day Soviet Russia, except none of us even realizes it.
there's a
That's the
difference
reality
though.
of the
So Ian,
situation.
there's a difference if this is over having a back door, which I'm totally against, and Telegram failing to moderate content that they know is illegal.
This is not about the failure of
But
moderating
that's what
content. That's
that's what
just
the
a
reports
pretext,
say, though,
Brian.
right? That it's
Yeah,
over
that's
moderation.
Brian. That's just a pretext. It's a pretext. They're using that to try to get the encryption. That's
Can
it.
I ask for clarification
Wake
here,
up,
Ian?
man.
So
Nonsense. That's nonsense.
hold on. Can I ask for clarification here? So you guys are talking about content, right? But the way Telegram works, it's a communication platform. Like it's basically people sharing communication with each other. So to put the onus on the owner of the platform is, and to say it's okay for people to listen to people's communications just in case they do something criminal, where does that expand to? Can somebody just pick up your phone and go, hey, I want to hear, make sure you're not doing anything criminal on your phone? Or even on it's up to the law enforcement agencies, right, to get a warrant if they believe there's criminal activity, and then request access based on that warrant. But is that what's happening here, or is this just they want somebody to give somebody unfettered access to something without the right to have any sort of privacy?
We don't
What is
know
the
that
hang
yet,
up?
do we?
I
Well,
don't know. That's what I'm asking.
here's what's going on. You have the report saying about moderation, and whether it be through public posts to a channel or the communications. What at least the preliminary report was there is a lack of moderation. What the moderation could be is something where it could have a back door, which is what the Telegram founder told Tucker Carlson a couple years ago, where basically he was one of their engineers, or top engineers, was approached in America by people with the government requesting to learn more about the actual, I guess the internal, I guess some internal components of of Telegram, and to install a public source thing, some sort of other component to it to allow for backdoor. In terms of what this dispute's about, it's moderation of content could be banning a certain type of picture or image, or it could be where they snoop around DMs and look around and say, okay, there's a bad message here. Let's go and have action. A government should have the ability to issue a warrant and say, we suspect this because of these reasons, and if they do have those reasons or criteria met, they can go and get some sort of logs. With that being said, they use backdoors and they have stolen data from us, and they've used data from us for years on end. The question is whether the government is going to is say, oh, there's some bad things going on this platform. Therefore, we need more access, and then more access being backdoors, having access to our DMs, other information about what we're talking about on the platform. It's really up in the air at this point, and they can say that it's because of a certain case. But in reality, if we give over more access, whether it be a backdoor to DMs or other information to the governments, whether it be our government or the UK or any other government out there, they can use it against us and spy on us without any sort of guardrail against that oversight or against that type of control.
Okay, that makes sense. Brian, other Brian, do people have a right to privacy on platforms, or is it anybody should be able to listen to whatever they want or get whatever they want? What do you think, Brian?
Well, look, I appreciate you guys having me, Mario, David, and Brian. Always lovely to see all three of you. Look, here's the thing: there's a constitutional right to a certain level of equal protection, and also undue, search and seizure from the government. When it comes to private companies, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are not government public spaces. They're private spaces run by corporations. And here's the thing: if you ran a store and you had employees that were running a sex trafficking ring or a child pornography ring, or were engaged in human trafficking or mafia, anything, if you were the owner of that business and there was found to be criminal activity happening there, in any normal business, you could be in trouble. There's a certain I didn't know kind of thing that can get you off, but I didn't know isn't good enough when you have the responsibility. When you have the responsibility and it's your premises and your company and your resources being used to commit crimes that harm people. And what I've always said,
But this
Brian,
is a
let me ask
public
you. Let me ask
space,
you. Hold
though.
on.
I don't
Let
think
me
it's
ask
even
you.
the same thing.
so
Yeah, Brian, just let me ask you a more direct question. Let me ask you a direct question. I asked Brian Krassenstein earlier. Do you think if there's two people that so if Telegram communication is encrypted, that means any DM I send you on Telegram, I know that nobody, not even Telegram themselves, can see that DM, okay, that message. So do you think that if Pavel was approached by the authorities and said, "Hey, we have suspicion or we have evidence that this